Hi guys, so welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. As you can guess from the title, this video is actually going to be about my personal advices that I'm giving you as a fellow expat before you move to Paris. I figured that since the new year is coming, a lot of people would be planning to move to Paris. So I just thought that I would kind of like gather up all of my advices and like recommendations for you if you're in a situation where you're looking into moving to Paris next year. So this is what we are doing today. Also, just before we start, please make sure to subscribe to this channel and like this video if you feel like doing that. And without any further ado, let's start the video. So my first advice to you before you move to Paris is to be really smart with your housing choices. Looking for an apartment in Paris is not exactly the easiest thing. Some apartments are super expensive, some of them are super small for a really ridiculous price. Some of them don't have an escalator. Actually, most of them don't have an escalator. For some apartments, you actually need a French guarantor, so it's a really complicated process. Just make sure that you take the time to look into apartments in Paris and that you don't leave it to the last minute like I did. I actually have a video about how I personally found my apartment in Paris in literally 3 days, which I don't recommend anyone to do because it's really stressful. Yeah, just make sure that you take the time to look at all of your options. Also, what I recommend you is to kind of like look at apartments in the outer areas of Paris. Considering that Paris is already like such a hectic city, I think it's just nice to come home to an environment that it's a little bit more chilled. Also, usually apartments in these areas are a lot cheaper. So yeah, just be smart when choosing your apartment and make sure to look at all of your options and read your contract really carefully. And yeah. So the next thing that you should know before moving to Paris is that you will need a French bank account. I think that France is just one of those countries where it's really hard to do anything if you don't have a French bank account. To obtain a SIM card, you need a French bank account. And even to have internet, for the most part, you need a French bank account. I think it's just one of those things that you're better off doing if you are really planning to live there for a longer period of time. So I would really recommend you to look into what you need exactly in order to open a French bank account in France before you move there. Just like what kind of papers you need and how long it's gonna take and things like that. Okay, so the next thing that you should know before moving to Paris is that public transportation is probably going to be your best friend. I said this many times before, but you really don't need a car in Paris. The public transportation will take you anywhere you want to go in the city and also in its outer areas. Metros, trams, buses, the RER. There are just so many options that you can take to move around Paris, and let alone the fact that it's just so much faster and easier, and also obviously it's more environment friendly to just take the public transportation. What I recommend you to do is to download the RATP application before you move to Paris. This will give you updates on like the public transportation situation and like what kind of delays are happening, and you can also plan your trips in this application. Also, one more thing that you will need if you will be taking the public transportation regularly is the Navigo pass. So the standard price for the Navigo pass is 75 euros, and I think it's around like 40 euros if you're a student. So the next thing that you should know before you move to Paris is that you probably should learn some basic French. People usually hate it when I give this advice. I always say it to my friends who live in Paris who don't speak French that I admire how brave they are. Honestly, I just cannot imagine myself living in Paris and like not being able to understand what's going on around me. I think that France is just one of those countries where you're so much better off learning some basics than just purely like relying on English. Or of course, like there are French people who can speak English. If you want them to treat you nicely, at least like just learn the basics to just kind of like show that you're willing to like learn about their culture. I'm not telling you to be like suddenly fluent in French, but at least just like learn the basics. You will see a huge difference in the way they treat you if at least you're starting off the conversation in French. So the next thing that you should know before moving to Paris is that healthcare is actually affordable. There's a wonderful thing that is called Sécurité Sociale that allows you to get reimbursed 70% of your doctor visits and also your prescriptions, I believe. If you don't have this insurance, a simple doctor visit will be around like 25 euros. So it's still okay, but if you really planning on staying in France for a longer period of time, you might want to consider getting the Sécurité Sociale and your carte vitale. The second insurance that you can get is called the mutuelle, which will pay for the remaining percentage of your doctor visits that your Sécu doesn't pay for. Also, just one more thing, there is an application that is called Doctolib, which is an application that allows you to book your doctor appointments based on your criteria, like which language you can speak and like which kind of doctor you want to see. It's really easy to use and yeah, it's just super fast and convenient. So the next thing that you should know before moving to Paris is that drinking in public is actually legal. You might even see a lot of people doing picnics and like drinking wine during the summer out in public. It's a really normal thing to do in France. That being said, public intoxication is illegal, so just make sure that you're staying safe and being smart when you're drinking in general, not just in France but everywhere, no matter where you are. So the next thing that you should know before moving to Paris is that you probably shouldn't move in August. August is the month where everybody takes their summer vacation, and in August bureaucracy takes even longer than it normally does. That being said, August is probably my favorite month in Paris because there's no one in the city and it's just so quiet and peaceful, and yeah, it's the best time to be in Paris, but not if you're moving. So the next thing is about the weather. Honestly, the biggest shock for me when I moved to Paris was how gloomy it is. I honestly wasn't expecting Paris to be so gloomy, especially during the fall and winter months. The sun rarely ever comes out. Yeah, just make sure that you pack some vitamin D supplements before you move to Paris because you will need them during the winter. That being said, I wouldn't say that it gets that cold in Paris. I never really feel cold in Paris. Even in the winter, the weather is really mild and rainy, but it never really snows or gets like in the minuses. It's just gloomy, but you can get used to it. And so the last thing that you should know before moving to Paris is that patience is needed. You guys probably know by now that the French bureaucracy takes ages to get anything done, but I think that slow pace can be also observed in other parts of their culture. For example, eating out or also even just going for a cafe can take up to hours and hours, and that is just a really normal thing in France to really like sit down and really savor your food and like chat with people and like take your time, especially with eating. Lunch breaks can even take up to 2 hours, but honestly, if there's one thing that we should learn from the French, it is to slow down and to savor our food and kind of like be in the moment and appreciate whatever you're doing instead of just rushing. I mean, it definitely takes some time to get used to, but I think it's not a bad way to live, and patience is a virtue. So I think that this is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching again. I really hope that I was able to give you some useful advices and tips, and if you're planning on moving to Paris the next year, good luck for you. I wish you the best of luck, bon courage, and yeah, just wish you the best of luck. Make sure to please subscribe to this channel and like this video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!